All right, that's for them. Now for everybody. We're beginning a brand new conversation that begins tonight called Show and Tell. So let's real quick go back through memory lane and help me find out if I'm just too old. Have you ever, like probably in elementary school, had that day at school that was show and tell day? Did anyone just raise your hand if you ever had a show and tell day at school? Okay, they still do it. Good. So if I remember correctly, you were instructed to bring something from home that meant something meaningful to you, and then you got in front of the class and you revealed it, you showed it, and then you talked about it. Does that make sense? Is that kind of the same thing you experienced? And me, that's kind of what I experienced. And so you had this thing, it was meaningful. You showed it, and then you talked about it. But if I'm using my mind logically, before you can talk about something, you actually have to know what you're talking about, right? So I want to kind of put this on display. So tonight, if we're going to take a title to write down for this part of the conversation, it would be Know God. Know God. And y'all talked about some false gods in your discussion, so I'm excited to kind of look back at those. But before we get into that, I need a volunteer. But this is the requirement. You need to be someone who is very knowledgeable about pop culture, like pop culture references. Okay, I see some hands went down. Celebrities. All right, do we know some? All right, Cosma, come on up, Cosma. Let's welcome Cosma to the stage. All right, Cosma. Let the Lord lead you, whatever you want to. I have to expect you to just roll. Oh, that's cool. All right, you can have a seat right there. All right, so we're going to play a little game. And here's the rule of the game. So everyone, you're going to help Cosma know the celebrity that we're about to put on the screen. But here are the rules. You cannot say the celebrity's name or any nicknames affiliated with the celebrity that would give it away. The only thing you can do is describe or give clues toward this person, all right? So it's kind of like Guess Who, if you will. All right, now, Cosmo, your only rule is you can't look at the monitors, okay? You can't look at these back screens, okay? You can only look forward, okay? So we're going to see how long it takes her to guess correctly the celebrity you described for her, all right? So we're going to do that in 3, 2, 1, go, all right? So, all right. The Rock, all right, that's a record. It only took about 10 seconds. Can we give Cosmo a big hand? Woo, 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 woo. You can exit the stage any way you like to, Cosmo. Just let the Lord lead you, but don't roll in or hurt anything. Awesome. So that was really cool. I don't know if you witnessed that. Like maybe you had your hair done. Maybe you had your earbuds in or something, because we know this because you leave them here every week. I don't know why you bring them. Fun fact, if you don't bring them, you won't lose them. I don't know. That's what somebody told me. But check this out. Cosmo was sitting right here, and we showed a picture back there, and she guessed it correctly. Now, what was interesting to me, and she did the same thing that our middle school group did, she didn't just look around the room and start over here and say, okay, who? She didn't go, who is it? She didn't do that. She looked at one location around the area that involves her small group. And the ones who were closest to her, the ones who didn't have to yell the loudest. And they were someone that she trusted. Do you trust these people? Do you trust? Okay, cool. I don't know if I need to hide my wallet or what, it's CrossPointe. You never know. Hey, you can belong before you believe. You know what I'm saying? So she trusted them. But everybody was yelling at her, describing the same person. But no one was saying the same thing. So here's my point. How hard must it be to live in a world where everyone around you is telling you who God is, and you just want to know the truth? So sometimes you're even looking to people that you trust, and you're trying to hear what they're saying, but everyone around them is saying it louder and louder. And sometimes you even hear the people in the back screaming the loudest about something that's not true, but it kind of makes sense, so you follow that path. And it takes you further and further. So let me ask you this question to see if you've ever been in this situation. Have you ever been involved in a conversation where someone came up to you and they had that look? They smacked their lips before they, girl, let me tell you something. What I heard was that she, da 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 da. That's what I heard. That's all I'm saying. That's what I heard. Or I don't know if you know this or not, but what I heard was that he, da 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 da. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Dude, what are you saying, right? Have you ever been in a conversation that went like that, but they were talking about one of your best friends, someone who you knew very well? Oh, okay. So y'all do go to Jack Britt. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But here's my point. You could hear what they're saying and immediately know, nah, that wasn't them. My friend's not like that. You got the wrong person. Or maybe you're like, yeah, that's definitely them. Yeah, absolutely. Right? But it's because you knew them. So I want to kind of ask this question as we go into tonight's message. And it's short, so hang with me. I promise it actually is short. How well do you know Jesus? Like if we did the same thing that you did with the rock, right? So some of y'all did this. It's a rock, right? I don't know if y'all went like this. I don't know if anyone yelled out jabroni. I don't know if you did all that. I heard Fast and Furious. I heard Jumanji. I loved him in Jumanji. But you like started naming some. I didn't hear Tooth Fairy. I don't know. But like you started naming some movies that he was in. But if I put Jesus on the screen, and then you were trying to act out like, what would you do? Or what would you say to help Cosma know about Jesus? Would you, like portrait, like diving board, like I don't understand what you're saying. Like crown, Queen Victoria, like it's like, what are you saying to me right now? Like the nails, and I don't speak sign language. You didn't go to that church? Right? So, I think everybody kind of went to that church at least one Easter, right? So, like, what would you do to like express who Jesus is? It's really hard to show Jesus if you don't know Jesus. So tonight, I want to give you just two qualities of Jesus, so that when you leave this room, and you have someone try to tell you who Jesus is, you can automatically run it through this filter and say, show me the Bible verse because that doesn't sound like Jesus. I don't think that's how Jesus views those kind of people. In fact, I think he views all people the same way. Here's what I know because it's my experience. So with that, I think it's best, if you're ever going to try to understand someone, that you go to the people who are closest to that person, right? So I want to know about you. I'd go talk to your best friends. I'd go talk to your parents, and then I'd have an understanding. So let's go to Jesus' BFF, like his best friend for life. And there was a resurrection, so it's a long time, right? So let's go to that guy. His name is John. You might have heard of him. And so John actually, after Jesus' execution and resurrection, writes about Jesus. And in the opening chapter of his letter, he writes a description of his best friend. And he's thinking of these years he's known this guy, his best friend. He's thinking, like, man, what would I use to describe Jesus? How can I put into words all that this guy did, all that this man was? Like, I mean, you could probably describe your best friend, and like it might take you a paragraph, right? But John has, I need to get to the point of this thing. And so in John chapter 1, verse 14, here's what Jesus' best friend said about him. He said, the Word, that's it. He was the Word, and he became flesh. He stepped out of heaven and became human, and he made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, meaning I'm an eyewitness to what this man, so I know him, because I've seen him do these things. The glory of the one and only Son. No one else has done this or proclaimed like Jesus proclaimed it, who came from the Father. And get this, if I had to put into two words to describe Jesus, the first one is that he was full of grace. Somebody say grace. and full of truth. Somebody say truth. So if I had to describe Jesus in 2 words, he was grace and he was truth. Now here's what's likely to happen, especially if you just popped your ear pods back in or something like that. So keep those out. But here's what you might want to do. You might say, oh yeah, grace. That means I should do whatever I want to because Jesus is going to forgive me, right? That's not what grace is. Do you know the definition of grace? Here's a little quite paraphrase for you. Grace is when you don't get what you deserve. When you've messed up and you deserve punishment, but you get peace. That's grace. Grace is when you were late getting home and lied to your parents, and they know, and they say, honey, don't let it happen again. Go into your room. That's grace. Actually, grace is letting you stay at home. Like that, to be real with you, like you have a room, like you have a bed, you have clothes. That's grace. But that's real grace. Truth is saying, I'm not just going to let you do or believe whatever you want to. So I need you to real quick, whenever someone says, I'm just trying to live my truth, just say, because you probably don't want them to live their truth because their truth will hurt your reality, right? It's going to collide at some point if y'all keep riding together long enough, right? So I don't want to live anyone else's truth unless you called me into existence. Because if you brought me into the world, I know you know some stuff, right? So I want to live Jesus' truth. But let's pick up with this vision and this situation of what we talked about last week. So last week, if you remember, we had the sex talk, okay? And in your conversations, in your small groups, maybe you had some flashbacks of some decisions you've made. And you have already made a sexual decision. You've had sex in your past or done sexual things. And you're like, now I'm feeling bad about that. Or maybe you don't. Well, last week's conversation, I think, kind of handled that part. But let's say that you left here feeling really guilty and you were filled with shame about your past decision. I wanted to let you know that that situation is one that Jesus actually experienced with the young lady when she was brought to him and she had had sex outside of marriage and she was caught in the act. So Jesus' best friend, John, wrote it down and retold this story. So I'm going to set the scene for you. Jesus is at the temple. So it's like we're at church and Jesus is up here teaching. And all of a sudden the doors are thrown open. And there's this group of guys bringing in this woman who has a sheet wrapped around her. She's sobbing. She's crying. She's shaking. She looks scared to death. And they bring her up here and they say to Jesus, this woman was just caught having sex with someone she's not married to. She's not in this marital relationship. She had an affair with this guy. This is adultery. And then here's what they express to Jesus. Here is the truth they present to Jesus. Verse 5 of chapter 8. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. It's very easy to belittle someone when you just put them into a category. And you don't think about the person this represents. Oh, no, it's just a woman. But this is truth. In the Old Testament, Moses was instructed by God, like, hey, adultery, sex outside of marriage, they can be stoned. This is a capital punishment. You can be executed for this. And it wasn't peaceful, and it wasn't pleasant. They literally picked up a rock, and they would throw it at the person until their skull was cracked, and they could see their brain exposed. And then they stopped. And that was the punishment by Jewish law that they could do right here in the temple because she was caught in the act. Now, we won't get into all the details of how this could have been a setup, but we do know this, that they were trying to trap Jesus. They just wanted him to say the wrong thing so they could accuse him of some stuff too, just like they're doing this girl. But Jesus, check this out. So they end up saying, what do you say? Because they didn't know Jesus like you know Jesus. And it goes on, and it says, when they kept on questioning him, like they wanted him to do something and say something to prove that they were right and do something and handle this woman who's sitting here crying, sobbing, thinking she's about to be executed, Jesus straightened up and said to them, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. And here's why I love that verse. Because this gives every Christian the perspective of grace. That you cannot be in a conversation with someone who is not living a life that honors God and start being mean to them. Because you have sinned too. I've been in conversations with people and they're like, Josh, I just don't understand how you treat me this way. Like I've heard of I had someone talk to me about how they had same-sex attraction. They're attracted to other guys. And they've had stories of when their friends and their family came out to their friends and family, how they were just ostracized and belittled and just like shunned from the family. I don't understand how you could treat me like this. And the explanation I give is that because I've sinned. I know what it's like to sin. I've helped people sin. If we want to sit here and compare sins, we can go punch for punch, right? I know what it's like. But I know grace, and I know truth. And so I want to help show you that grace and let you live the truth to seek God. So I'm not here to make you feel bad about anything. I just want to show you how Jesus has done everything you need for forgiveness. So let's talk about that. Let's stop talking about the shame that you feel. And all you have to do is say, forgive me, God, and mean it, and turn. And say, a lot of people turn this way. They say, oh, I made a mistake. Forgive me, Lord. And they turn all the way around and do it again, right? Repenting is turning 180 and saying, I don't want to do that anymore because I feel the shame and the guilt from it. God, please forgive me for that. I don't even want to do that anymore. So who am I to talk to someone who's going through a struggle and make them feel bad about that? I know what it's like. So these guys who brought this woman in, Jesus said, okay, you are right. That is true. You can pick up a stone and you can throw it at her if you have not committed a sin. And these guys put down their rocks and walked out because they knew that they had sinned too. What's interesting to me, though, is that Jesus had not sinned. So in the comic book version, whop, end credits, right? That would have been like Jesus would have picked up a rock and thrown it at her and been in the right because he had not sinned. But Jesus, as John described him, was full of something different than just condemnation. Check this out. Here's what Jesus responded with. Jesus straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? The guys that like grabbed you forcefully from the bedroom, you wrapped in the sheet, they brought you, they drug you through the streets, they brought you here in tears, they embarrassed you in front of all these people. Where are they now? Has no one condemned you? Did no one pick up a rock and throw it at you? Are you still living? And she responds this way, no one, sir. I love the respect. Even in 2020, that translates, sir. Jesus says, then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. If I looked at that last sentence that Jesus said, go now and leave your life of sin, you know what that sounds like to me? That go now part means that you're off the hook, you're free to go. That sounds a lot like grace. And if I just had to nail it down, that last part of sin no more was that he was telling her the truth, that what you did, that was a sin. And what they said about you being stoned, like by Jewish custom, you've grown up around here, you're Jewish, like that is what the law says. But I'm here not to condemn the world, John would put in chapter 3, but to save the world. That's why I'm here. I'm here to show you grace and show you truth. Now, there will come a day after this life where you're held accountable for everything you've said and done. But that's not today. So go now. But stop sinning. Don't be in those kind of sexual relationships. You're forgiven. But don't start repeating. Let's start repenting. That's truth. So now when you hear those two words, and when I ask you like, hey, real quick, do you know Jesus? If I put Jesus on the screen, all of a sudden you could say grace. And you can say truth. And I can say Jesus. But my question to you, squad, is when you leave this room, will you be full of grace and truth? You can't pick sides, right? You can't say, no, I'm just going to be on the grace team. No, I'm just going to be on the truth team and bash people about what they don't know. Grace and truth. So now, as we close and we're about to pray together, how well do you know Jesus? We're going to play a song here in a few minutes, and we're just going to take some time for you to just pray. And I want you to pray this prayer right here. Lord, help me know you. And anytime you go to read the Bible, before you start reading those words that were penned so that you would have them and know him, I just want you to say, Lord, help me know you from what I'm about to read. And then start reading, understanding that that points you toward who Jesus is. So I want you to pray right now, just to yourself, seeking God and asking him, will you make yourself known to me? Let's pray together, squad. Hey, I'm Josh Carter. Thank you so much for stopping by to view this message. If your next step is to receive Christ as your Lord and Savior, we are so excited for you and we want to help you take that next step. So jump in the description and click those links to find out what following Jesus is all about, what that means, and of course, what's next. And if your next step is baptism, we would love to schedule that for you. So just go to CrossPointe.church, select next steps, and get baptized, and fill out that application, and we will schedule that day with you. So super excited for you. But again, thank you so much for viewing this week's message. Have a great day, and God bless.